lot of forecasting to do here, and a lot of it at this point is relatively uncertain. There is a lot of potential with what is now tropical wave Harvey, the remnants of tropical storm Harvey, moving over the Yucatan this morning. Today is going to be an uneventful day for this system. It's not going to develop. It's going to track over the Yucatan, but tomorrow, as it reemerges out into the Gulf of Mexico, Bay of Campeche, the atmosphere is going to be much more conducive for some development of this system. So there's a lot of moving parts right now we need to talk about and how they're going to affect the play on the direction and maybe even the strength of this system. So it was a tropical storm last Friday. The forecast at that point was calling for it to go into Central America and fizzle out much farther to the south than it is at its present location in the Yucatan. So with it being weaker and farther north, this upper atmosphere tropical low that's in the Gulf of Mexico, in my opinion, is going to have a pull to the north on this feature. So this tropical low is going to want to draw the tropical wave into it, and its effect should be to see more of a northerly track. The trend should be shifting to the north. Also, high pressure, we talk about this a lot, is going to be moving away from us. So it's going to be moving to the north. Sometimes this will be parked right over top of us and it'll buffer us from anything tropical heading this direction. So that's going to be moving away. And then you got to talk wind shear. More northerly track is going to have more wind shear to contend with. The more southerly track will have less wind shear, which would mean that the atmosphere is better for development the farther south, not as good for development the farther north you go as this thing starts to get into the Gulf of Mexico. So we're talking about the trends here, the shift in the spaghetti plot. You're going to see it pretty clearly here as this system gets into the Bay of Campeche tomorrow. This is when I think the forecast details are going to become a lot more clear because it'll start to organize a little bit more and the models will do a better job on keying in on potential strength and direction. At this point, the thing to know is the big shift in the data. Almost all of the weather guidance pointing this at the Texas Gulf Coast with the exception of the hurricane WRF. And I think that this is showing the effect of that tropical low that's in the Gulf right now. So that's going to be wanting to pull this thing a little farther to the north. So what I did now is took two of the weather models, two of the more popular, more reliable ones, the GFS and the European, GFS in blue, European in green, and what I did was overlaid the surface pressure. This is the central area of low pressure that could develop as this thing gets more organized and moves into the Gulf of Mexico. And you can see here that 100, 200 miles north or south of Corpus Christi, the GFS and the European are placed in this system, and these two tracks would mean a very different forecast for us. Worst case scenario would be a strengthening storm like the European is indicating just south of Corpus Christi. That would put us in the right front quadrant, the strongest part of this potential system. Storm surge, strongest winds, heaviest rains would be a problem. A more northerly track would have us on the western flank of the storm, the weaker side of it, the marginal effects of it, not as strong. And toward Houston, we'd see the winds coming out of the north, so we wouldn't be getting the direct bad effects of the storm. The best case scenario, in my opinion, is for this thing to remain a tropical wave and track right over top of us, giving us beneficial heavy rains, but not all the harmful effects of a tropical system. So what we know is that this is going to approach Texas on Friday. Potential for heavy rains, 2 to 4 inches going to be there. The guidance at this point, almost all of it is indicating tropical storm or even hurricane strength. So that's something we got to watch for sure, but that's highly uncertain. And then the coastal effects we're going to have to deal with potentially storm surge, rip currents, and coastal flooding. Today, run-of-the-mill summertime day, 95, sunny to partly cloudy skies and a southeast wind 5 to 15 miles per hour. 76 tonight, mainly clear skies. It'll be warm and humid with calm southeasterly winds. Another pair of benign weather days, and then things get interesting in the tropics. Again, we're going to have the potential for what would be Harvey heading this direction. That would happen on Friday at some point, and it's going to be something that, I'm not saying is going to happen 100%, but at this point we need to see and prepare for the potential for this thing to come this direction. Again, there's a lot of uncertainty. Anybody, I'm sure they're talking about in Houston up there as well. We need to be prepared. We need to be on alert that this thing could come this direction. Same thing in Brownsville, and we're just happen to be right in the middle of that uncertainty. So I think tomorrow is going to be a much more telling day as it gets out into the Bay of Campeche. We will keep a watch on it.
All right, thanks, Alan.